Cougar, it would be interesting to review the preseason AP poll of 2021 to the final poll. Same with the preseason picks for the finishing in the Big 12 of how they actually finished. Well, we know that Baylor was picked like 7 or 8, ended up winning the conference. And so that's why this year, if somebody was to come out of that 5-team group or so that we've talked about and wins the conference, would it be shocking? It all depends. I mean, that's why they don't play the games based on rankings or power index. They play the games with the football, players on the field, coaches, and also results. The scoreboard tells it all.
I have it right here. Here's the preseason. And without looking at the postseason, I can tell you, here are the teams that did not live up to billing. The top 6 were all pretty good, although Clemson had a down year. Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, and A&M. Of course, Georgia won the whole shooting match. Iowa State at 7. Did not finish 7th. Cincinnati at 8th.
Yeah.
It was in the playoff.
They nailed it.
Notre Dame at 9, about, what Notre Dame was last year. North Carolina at 10. They were not 10th. Oregon at 11th. A little below 11th, yeah. Wisconsin at 12th. Finished strong. Florida 13, Miami 14. Both those teams well below that fired their coach.
Yep.
USC 15, fired their coach.
Yep.
Early in the season, LSU 16, fired their coach.
It's a pretty good run right now.
Yeah. Indiana 17.
They had the year before that. That's the year they had.
You think about this, though. This is like, okay, let's start off the NFL season, and we're going to put the Cowboys are the number 14. And I know it's totally different, but, I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like, the Cowboys would be ranked high every year, whether they deserved it or not, because, and that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the same names that clearly were not deserving of their rankings. Half of them, you just mentioned, have fired their coaches already. I mean, that's why the preseason poll, when I see that, I realize it's just for show. It's just for TV. Yeah. And it's just throwing darts out there. Like, yes, it's easy to predict Alabama at number 1. If you were wrong, okay, you were wrong by, like, a spot. But I think, like, past, like, the top 3 or 4, who the hell really knows?
Yeah. Iowa is the last team on this list. Well, no, there's one more. Iowa's preseason 18, and they pretty much they were better than that a little bit when it came to them. But Penn State down, Washington fired their coach, Texas lost to Kansas, didn't make a bowl game, Coastal Carolina at 22, Louisiana at 23, Utah at 24. They certainly finished
absolutely
up. Arizona State didn't fire their coach, probably going to fire him now, though.
So would you say, out of everyone you mentioned, are there 5 to 7 programs in the top 25 preseason poll that don't have the same coach? Because there's like 4 or 5 in a row that you mentioned.
2, 3, 4, 4, 5. There's 5.
Okay. And Indiana was coming off a year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's between 5 and 7. That's exactly what it was. So Indiana was coming off that pretty good year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they seemed like they had some momentum. It did not work out. And there were some teams in the Big Ten during the COVID year that just weren't very good at all, that were better than what their record indicated, but just not that year. And it's interesting, man. It's interesting to watch.
But that's just like films like a team having the media guy. This is the 25th straight year we've been in the top 25 to start. I mean, I guess that shows consistency, but then you think about it, it's like, yeah, but clearly there were some of those years where you didn't deserve it at all. But it's still in your media guy because it's just like some media dude decided, yeah, they're number 12 based on the offseason and a year ago. So, yeah, I don't put a lot of stock into those initial polls.
And again, it was already hard enough to figure out when player movement was very restricted.
Right.
Now that it's completely wide open, I mean, it is seriously, a wild-ass guess. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it is absolutely, after Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, I'm guessing.
Yeah, everybody is. I mean, for the most part, everybody is. I mean, there might be some more knowledgeable than others, but for the most part, you could throw just whoever you want to out there, and you can make a case for them right now. Yeah. And we'll see in several months what that actually looks like at the end, but nobody really knows the moment.
Yeah, and without looking at the schedules in front of me, those top 3 or 4 teams are the only ones that I cannot give you beyond tragic doomsday scenarios why they would lose more than 1 or 2 games. Everyone else, okay, Oklahoma, for example, we've talked about them. I can give you a scenario where they might lose 4. I can give you a scenario where they might be 11-1. I don't really know because there's so much turnover there. Look, A&M, I can give you a scenario where they're 11-1. I can also give you a scenario much more likely that they will be 8-4 because that's what history tells us. I can give you a scenario where LSU bounces back and contends for the SEC West, but I don't know between 3 and maybe 4 guys who the quarterback's going to be, right, Garrett?
Yeah, it's gonna be rough, man.
Yeah.
No
So,
idea.
again, if you're going into a 3-person quarterback battle, in August, that's not where you want to be. But if everything else works out and all their transfers, play up, then fine. But yeah, I give me somebody, I'll give you the good and the bad.
It is, for example, Texas most likely will be ranked in the top 25, and they were ranked in this top 25. And Paxton goes, how can you not rank them in the top 25? Here's why. They will be. They almost always will be, no matter coaching transitions or not. Because for the last 12 years, how many times, and I don't know the answer, I'm going to say 3 times. How many times since 2010, the year after they played for the national title, have they actually outperformed their preseason ranking and or the hype?
Yeah, just the Sugar Bowl year.
And even then, they lost 4 games that year.
Yeah.
They beat Oklahoma and then lost to OU in the Big 12 championship game, and then they got Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And that's why, if they're not ranked, that would be a legitimate reason why. And again, some of the reasons they are ranked because, well, they have a lot of,
you got to have a number.
Bells and whistles.
You got to have a ranking for that Alabama game in week 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's TV. That's why they do top 25 rankings more than anything else. I mean, yeah, Texas, Alabama puts butts in seats, but doesn't make the commercial as shiny when it's not number 1 Alabama, number 16 Texas, versus the alternative. So, I think that could be something that, yeah, let's watch week 1 first and see how that goes. And then, boom, you want to slap some numbers on them, then great, and at least be more accurate. And I know it wouldn't tell the whole tale in week 1. There's not a perfect way to do it. But, yeah, they've clearly benefited from just having a logo. And people just, here's the thing with Texas. This is the thing with Texas last year. Everybody keeps predicting them to be back just because eventually they'll be right. Clearly nobody really knows because they've been swinging and missing for like a decade on when they were back and when they weren't. I think everybody's just expecting it. It's just like someday we'll say this and they'll actually be that good, and we'll be like, oh wow, yes, they are back, and then move on from there. But it's just like a lot of just hope more than actual facts that are bringing them that number most of the time.
And I'll tell you, fans, you are doing a disservice to your own team by putting unfair expectations on them until they earn it, because you create culture problems. I'll give you the example of
if I was a Texas fan, I wouldn't want a preseason ranking,
exactly.
man.
I'll give you the example of the